One circle, one circle, one big circle. One circle, one circle, one big circle. So, a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. And that first photograph you saw me take was a photograph I would have taken 3 or 4 years ago. 10-stop filter, a 60-second exposure down at f10 to get as much movement in the waterfall as I possibly can. But as I've changed and grown as a photographer, there's a new way of doing it, and let me show you a technique that I use that just creates a little bit more detail in the waterfalls.
That's a proper camera.
That's James in a full frame Nikon. So instead, what I opt to do is use less big circles. I tend to use a polarizing filter just to take some of the shine off of the rock so you can see through the water. And it just makes it look a little bit prettier. It also pops the greens on the mossy rocks around where we are now. And I tend to opt for a slower ND filter. So this is a 3-stop filter. And that's going to allow for a slightly faster shutter speed. Well, let me explain to you why. So here we are with a polarizing filter on and just the 3-stop filter. And you can see instead of being down at 60 seconds, I'm actually down at 2.5 seconds, which just allows a little bit more texture and a little bit more detail, especially in the bottom of the waterfall. It just allows that to be retained. If I take this photograph now, I want to pay attention to the bottom of the waterfall here, just how much less swell there is and just how much more detail is retained in the water using a lot slower of a shutter speed. Or is it faster? It's a faster shutter speed, isn't it? Not slower. So using the same technique as before, we're barely into the seconds here, 1.6 seconds f8 using the 3-stop ND filter and the polarizing filter. So for a total of roughly 4 stops of filters. That's a touch on the rock wall behind the waterfall. Take that photograph. It's silky smooth, it's got that long exposure look, but we're not running the risk of blowing out any highlights, and we're also retaining a little bit of detail in some of the moving water. So you join me at the second waterfall on today's little adventure around North Yorkshire with James Hines, aka the Mood Chasing Photographer. Check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He has a really dramatic and moody style, something that I personally really like. So check him out, I'll leave a card above here. But while we're at this second waterfall, I want to show you another reason why you might want to use a slightly lower strength ND filter to take some waterfall long exposures. It enables you to go handheld in a place where you wouldn't otherwise be able to get a tripod. So let me demonstrate using the 8.5 stops worth of stabilisation in the OM1 Mark II. So the spot where I'm stood right now isn't somewhere where you would get a tripod. It wouldn't be possible. There's too many boulders. It's not very even surface. So I've decided to come up here with a polarising filter and the 3-stop filter on the front of the 12-40 Pro lens. And we're going to take a handheld long exposure photograph of this waterfall. It's something that is possible with the image stabilisation in this camera and the fact that I'm using a very light ND filter to begin with. Let's let me turn live ND off there. So we're going to scroll down to roughly 1.5 seconds worth of exposure time. Let's turn that mode off. I've got the super high burst rate on, it's not happy. There we go, so we're down at 1.5 seconds. And I'm just going to adjust my aperture accordingly once I've zoomed in. I think we'll do it vertically, I think. Let's have a look, 1.5 seconds. Let's have a look. F11, 1.3 seconds, and ISO 200. Let's take a photograph. A nice sharp handheld photograph of a waterfall because I didn't go mad with the exposure time. Some nice texture in the waterfall. Here's a photograph. So I've just been having a little potter about, just doing some handheld photographs with the OM1 Mark II, the 12-40 Pro, a polarizer and the 3-stop. It's quite a liberating thing to take some long exposure photographs without the need for a tripod, purely because we're getting shutter speeds that allows us to do that. So I've been down at 1.5 seconds, and like I said, the 8.5 stops worth of IBIS in this thing, it's really just compensating for my shaky jiggly hands. So here's just a couple of long exposure photographs that I've taken handheld with this thing. I hope you enjoy them. So thank you very much for watching today's video. I really do hope I was able to show you that sometimes less can be more when it comes to ND filters and waterfalls. You don't always have to throw the biggest filter you've got on there to get that silky smooth long exposure look. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It really does help the content, and it helps new viewers to see my channel. And if you're new here and you see me for the very first time, why not hit the subscribe button down below and you see more micro fourth edge nonsense from myself every single week. So until next time, I love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye.